Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. It is 4 p.m. ET on Tuesday, and that means you have found us on Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze. I'm your host today, Hank Phillippi Ryan, the USA Today bestselling author of 13 novels of suspense. I'm so pleased to tell you that. My newest one, The House Guest, will be out in February, but my current novel, Her Perfect Life, can I just take 1 second to tell you, is on sale today for $1.99 in ebooks. Chaley and Julia, who are here with me today, know how important that is. So I couldn't help but sneak in a little plug for my own book. Her Perfect Life will be $1.99 on all ebook platforms this week only. So no pressure. It's just my career. But if you would like to, if you have not read Her Perfect Life,
Pressure. Get it.
That's right. If you have not read it, or even if you have and would like to give it as a gift to someone, it's $1.99 for this week only. And end of commercial and back to our regular programming, because today we have the absolute joy of interviewing Cassidy Lucas, who, as you can see, is two different people. Cassidy Lucas is actually Julia Fierro and Shaylee Wolfson-Widger, who write as Cassidy Lucas. And we welcome both of you. Thank you to Margaret behind the scenes for making this clear on our fabulous banner. Margaret handles all of the banners, and you will see her pop in from time to time just to make sure you're listening and to give you a little bit of inside info about Chaley and Julia and all the books and everything you want to know. Anyway, their first bestseller was Santa Monica, but their newest book is The Last Party. And I have to tell you all really quickly. Oh, thank you, Chaley. I have to tell you really quickly that Publishers Weekly loved this book. And I think what they said about it was so fascinating. Hey, Pamela Fry. Oh, people are coming. It's so nice. Everybody is here. It's great. Publishers Weekly, who I think really understood this book, because there's a lot of depth in this novel. It's fun, it's fast paced, it's wacky, it's psychedelic, it's crazy, but it has a lot of depth. And I really think Publishers Weekly got it. Publishers Weekly said Lucas builds tension through the skillful interweaving of a pair of subplots and succeeds in satirizing characters who richly deserve it without losing sight of their humanity. And it went on to say, Leanne Moriarty fans will be pleased. What did you think, you two, when you read that?
I was shocked that we pulled it off. You know, and I mean, it's exciting to talk to such an accomplished crime thriller writer, because for us, part of working together, was that we wanted to write a more exciting, plot-driven story. And so, we both have a more literary background. And so I think doing it together, made it more fun and also gave us more confidence. And so I'm really proud of us for, kind of setting that task, that challenge, and doing it. Now we just have to do it how many books have you published?
Thank you. Yeah, but I'm way older than you. Anissa is here saying she's here for the last party. And indeed, you are all invited. But as it says on the cover, some guests were not invited. Chaley, what did you think when you saw the comparison to Leanne Moriarty?
Well, long before Big Little Lies was all over HBO and associated with Nicole Kidman and Meryl Streep, I was broadcasting my opinion that Big Little Lies is a perfect commercial thriller, or however you want to categorize it. But with the exception of the unfortunate opening chapter from the cat's point of view, I truly think it's a teachable book if you want to compel a reader to keep turning pages, plant all of those breadcrumbs that lead the reader down the trail to the revelation. I just think it's one of the most delightful crime reads, psychological thrillers, the last several decades, and many, many people agree with me. But anyway, my point is, I was absolutely delighted and flattered by that comparison, because I wanted to deliver a similar, or we wanted to give readers a similarly compulsive reading experience in our books. So
And I love that you say compulsive reading experience, because I think that's so wise. And I'll get to a little bit of your bio in a minute, but I want to continue this because I do think, Chaley, that's so wise, because I was interviewing Sophie Hannah, who is just so marvelous. And she was saying that one of the things that she really works for in her novels is to make the answer be irresistible, that the reader just cannot wait, that the reader can think of some things that might be the answer, but cannot wait to find the answer. Do you too think of that as you're writing? Julia, go ahead about that.
I mean, I do now. That's just a perfect, I think for me, that's also why I read. I mean, for me, it's reading and any kind of consumption of art is, at this point, especially in my life as a middle-aged woman with, teenagers, I just want to escape. I really want to be fully transported. And I love that she said that. That's just so perfect. There's nothing better than when, I'm just kind of futzing around the house and I'm thinking of a book or a TV series that I want to get back to so I can figure out, what's going on. So I do think that's a great way to think about what we hope to experience as readers, and also what we want our readers to experience.
And Chaley, I think it's interesting, going off of that, is that there's also, it's not only the plot, and you two do this so well in The Last Party, it's that the reader also cares about what's going to happen. Not only that we can't wait to find out what's going to happen, but we also care about what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the challenge, right? Is to put together a story that is full of twists and turns, an interesting subject matter. But if it's not populated by characters that readers can't emotionally invest in, then the story is not enough. And I'm constantly consuming books in this genre, and the ones that really shine are the ones that get that emotional investment and character investment as well as the story.
But you don't have to love them, you just have to care about them or be intrigued by them.
Oh, absolutely. Or you can loathe them even,
Our characters are very loathable.
Exactly. Well, let's go. We'll get to that in a minute, because that's one of the things we love to talk about here on Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze. For all of you who are coming here today, who are veterans of A Mighty Blaze and Crime Time, we welcome you. If you are new to A Mighty Blaze and new to Crime Time, you should know that A Mighty Blaze was started about 2 years ago, golly, more than that now, at the beginning of the pandemic, by the marvelous powerhouse team of Caroline Levitt and Jenna Blum, to keep us all reading and keep us together and keep us talking about books like the fabulous The Last Party. And we are persevering. And we also want to shout out a little bit today, not to forget the people of Ukraine who cannot sit in front of a computer and talk about books and talk about literature and talk about what's in our heart. And we are grateful that we're here, and our hearts go out to the people of Ukraine. And we hope that their travails and struggles are over very, very soon, and they can be home safely with their books, just like we are. So let me introduce formally Chaley and Julia. I'm going to hold this paper up so I can get it right. Cassidy Lucas, and I want to hear where that came from, is the pen name of the writing duo Julia Fierro and Chaley Wolfson-Widger. Fierro is the author of the novels Cutting Teeth, praised by the New Yorker as comically energetic debut, and The Gypsy Moth Summer, called hugely engaging by Francine Prose. That's about as good as you can get. Widger is the author of the novels Real Happy Family and Mother of Invention, praised by Margaret Atwood. You too have connections, as a pacey thriller, and was featured on NPR's Marketplace. Both Fiyero and Widger live in Santa Monica with their families. Their second novel, The Last Party, is set in Topanga Canyon, and it is out right now. So I want to talk about money and family and revenge and friendship and cancel culture and California and guilt and secrets. All of that is in this, and COVID too, of course, is in this novel. Very brave of you. But it starts, and Mighty Blaze, Margaret in the back room, is saying no end to the great reviews. Check them out, but not right now. Look at them later because I want to talk to Chaley and Julia. This story begins with an invitation. Why don't you take us into the story a little bit?
Chaley.
Sure. Yeah. So
Chaley's good at summarizing.
Okay. So the setup for the book is a 50th birthday getaway weekend in Topanga Canyon, as Hank said. And the invitation that opens the book is from a character named Mia Meadows. Mia is the one-time best friend turned enemy, then turned friend again of one of our main narrators, Dawn. And it's Dawn's 50th birthday. Mia has organized this trip to Topanga Canyon to celebrate Dawn. And it's momentous because for about a decade, the two best friends were estranged. And then Mia, during the pandemic, during the height of quarantine, has re-entered Dawn's life, kind of out of the blue, to Dawn's great surprise and tentative happiness. Mia sends a text and would like to reconnect. And Dawn agrees. The two women tentatively become friends again. And then Mia, who is a successful actor, as compared to Dawn, who is an esthetician with a lot of professional and personal problems. And so Mia is insisting on treating Dawn and their closest friends to this birthday weekend in Topanga Canyon. And the invitation is to celebrate Dawn's 50th journey around the sun at the top of Topanga Canyon. Mia's rented what's advertised as a lavish Airbnb. It turns out not to be the case, but it's in a very remote, isolated, cell phone signal free place in the Santa Monica Mountains.
I mean, you can, when you're reading the book, you can almost hear the da-dum, da-dum, da-dum music underneath. Yeah. Oh my golly, something is about to happen. It's great. And you do set it in this, it's very Agatha Christie-esque. It's almost a locked room mansion mystery. Talk a little bit, Julia, about why you decided on that sort of milieu.
Well, this, we came up with the idea of The Last Party before we had written, a word. And we are, our editor was interested in another book, and Santa Monica and The Last Party. And I had always wanted to write about Topanga Canyon, and I know Chaley did too, because it is kind of a, the locked room. It's an isolated area. When the road leading up into Topanga is closed, at least, a handful, maybe even more, like half a dozen times a year because of rock slides and fires. And so, and we had gone there actually for my 40th birthday. I had just moved to LA. I just moved to Santa Monica. And my husband planned this, it was a bunch of couples, including Chaley and her husband. And it was like, I felt like we drove up into the canyon for an hour, and I was starting to get really nervous, like a neurotic New Yorker, just moved. And we stayed at this really beautiful Airbnb, but it felt a little dangerous. Definitely things were not up to code. There was no railing. It was just like a drop. It was so beautiful. There were hundreds of hummingbirds. It was, and but I felt a little like, oh, I wanted to unwind. And now I'm like, can we go back down?
Can I just have my phone and the plug? I mean, it is interesting because that gorgeous beauty can be dangerous, especially if you're a little fish out of water about it. And as Priya is saying, that adds a sort of thriller-esque atmosphere about it, because not only are you remote, but you can't get help from anyone. And then you tell yourself, Chaley, as the people do throughout, it's all fine, it's all fine, it's all fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The beauty in California is like, it's majestic in a way that can sometimes feel, overwhelming. It's just, the mountains here, the hills, even the ocean just seems so big, compared to, where I grew up in New York. So.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely so. And but the structure of the story is terrific. It's two big plots sort of woven together, and the reader gorgeously gets a chance to figure out how those two plots are going together. It's complex, but it's very clear, and it's very suspenseful. Chaley, talk a little bit about. I mean, it's sort of like you two working together. The two plots weave together very seamlessly. Talk about how you set up, Chaley, the two elements of the plot.
Well,
they're sort of inside and outside, basically.
Right. Well, I mean, the way that we set up our plot, I mean, we of course we always start with character. And so the way Julia and I set things up is to first decide on our 4 narrators. And so we have this kind of little trick that we do so that we can organize the structure of the book. And in both of our novels, we've had 4 narrators, and that's very purposeful because we divide them. And in the first draft, we're each responsible for 2. And prior to that, we work with an outline and we come up with kind of the core conflicts and, the issues that the characters have with each other. And we have kind of a skeletal template of how the plot is going to unfold. And then we each write those 2 characters throughout the duration of the first draft. And then eventually, once we've completed that, then we switch and work on each other's characters.
Oh, wait a minute. This is so great. And I was going to ask you about this at the end, but I'm just going to
go. Okay, I am going to get to plot, but it's
no. But this is wonderful, and I know that all of our listeners. Hey, everybody who's here! If I look over here, hi, Brenda. I'm looking to see who has arrived today. I love when everybody comes.
Well, it is an alternating point of view.
But let me just ask you that. Let's say Chaley has person A. Do you write person A, and then Julia, you have person B, and then you write B, and then you have person C, and do it in order like that? Or do you each write your 2 parts and then put them together?
No. That would be disastrous.
It's only if we're that organized. We do come up with a story. And as you said, Hank, we have these 2 threads, right? And there's sort of an instrumental narrator in each of those two threads that are going to come together. So I had Dawn's storyline, right, which is the 50th birthday party and all of those resentments, the birthday girl, and all of the unresolved issues and conflicts between Dawn and her friends. Then Julia has Raj, right, who is this outlier and interloper, this character living off grid up in Topanga, where the party happens to be taking place. So we're each responsible for these 2 kind of core threads. And then we do, we write, we know where the story's going. And so we write our thread, we read each other's work as we're going, which is incredibly it feels very vulnerable to read each
Yeah,
other's work
first
at such an
draft.
early stage of draft, but we have to so that we can inform each other of how the storyline is unfolding. And then we have two other characters who are sort of each connected to two of the plots, and we take responsibility for those. And we write and exchange, write and exchange, write and exchange. But each responsible for those two core characters that we kind of own from the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's so cool because if you just arrived, we're talking about The Last Party by Cassidy Lucas, who's really Chaley Wolfson-Widger and Julia Fierro, writing as Cassidy Lucas for The Last Party. And as you read this, as I read this, there is no sense of two people writing. There is no sense of who writes Raj and who writes Don in any way.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
so
we
how
can even remember, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but there's section, like, we'll be reading part of it out loud at an event, and I'm like, wow, that's cool. I'm like, did I write that? Because I really want to be the one that wrote it. Sometimes I am, and sometimes Chaley's like, I don't know. So I do think that the plot comes pretty effortlessly from the characters. We really focus on the characters first, and then and I have come to realize that I do write more of the misfit outsider characters, and Raj and Twyla, and I do. What's so amazing is that we really do share a brain in a way that very few writer couples, writing partners have, and I think that seamlessness is because we both love reading fiction in the same way. We've been talking about reading fiction and are writing for 15 years. And, sometimes when when we've gotten to maybe like the middle of the book and we're both really informed of each other's characters and their internal tone and their quest, what they need, what they're so desperately needing or fearing, then what can happen is that Chaley feels comfortable writing dramatized scene, and I feel more comfortable writing the internal stuff, like the character's thoughts and feelings. So sometimes she will write a scene and then I will come in later and add to it with a lot of, the scene already has thought and emotion, but I like really pack it in there. Then poor Chaley has to edit it out, edit a lot of it out.
But when she edits it out, and I'm sure she doesn't very much, when she edits it out, you both know it then. Someone's attitude or intention or backstory or history or motivation is apparent to you both. And as you go forward, then you can fold that in maybe in a different way as the story progresses. You get an idea of intent.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and I do think that those the emotional writing and the backstory and the thought that does get pared down has a magical way of surfacing if it's been really realized within the writer. So I think that even if it does get cut, it's present in a way that it couldn't have been if you didn't overwrite. And that's why I don't, Julia will say like, oh, like I'm just like a maximalist and I'm overdoing it. But that work is present in the final draft. It's
unfortunately, it's necessary.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I agree, and that's exactly what I was talking about. That you have mined that stuff, and it may show up in another way throughout the book, and that's what makes it be so deep and still so fast paced. So you know what you're keeping, and you know what the essence is, and you know what the plot is as you're going forward, and everything advances the story or has some sort of a purpose, and that's really clear in the book. I mean, Dawn and Mia's relationship, or talk about a little bit about how Dawn and Mia and the others in this party group came to be together, and that's another important part of the book.
Chaley, you want to take that one since she's yours? Dawn.
Sure.
How do they know each other?
They came to be, just from just practical sense, they are a group of parents who met at a place called the Nursery, which is a child development and support center for parents of children with special needs. And so they came together in their 30s when their children were toddlers or in kindergarten and had hosts of different sorts of problems. Dawn's daughter has Asperger's and a generalized anxiety disorder. And her friends, Graham is one of the characters. He has sort of a intermittent ex-romantic interest of Dawn's. Their friend Reese, who attends the party, was the leader. She's a child development expert who ran this parent support group at the Nursery. So we you know, the broad answer is they have this shared history of struggle as parents and this unique experience of loving and raising children who are atypical. Yeah. And so that's what brought them together. And we really struggled with where this shared history would come from, because that came later. We sort of crafted the characters and their personalities and Dawn's various fraught relationships with them. And then we had to figure out the genesis, how they all, came to be. And we had so many bad ideas. Like it was really
I think they were a theater group at one point. We were like, that's not dangerous.
And it's really fascinating because you can see, well, were they a yoga group? As you say, were they a theater group? Right. The moms of kindergartners.
College friends.
The idea that college friends, exactly. All good, all your future books. But it's also that because they shared this bonding experience, and as Jamie says, that can be a story in itself, how the characters met. Yep. Because they had this bonding experience that has to do with motherhood and responsibility and how we care for each other and how much how selfish or selfless someone can be. That's that kind of experience to have children with this, similar but different needs. Shows the personality of each one, how they respond to that.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it was very interesting because we knew that we wanted, so this is before the pandemic that we sold this book. And we had our summary and we knew we wanted an anti-vaccination thread. And then
when the pandemic, so you were just having generally an anti-vaccination,
yes,
like measles.
Well, I don't even remember if it was me. I had been interested in writing about, parents to kids who have special needs, and then we made, the kids in this book have grown up, so they're in their, early 20s. And so it's really something that this group is looking back on, like this past. And we knew we needed a scandal. And so we sort of, we thought that would be great. Let's do that. And also, we're writing about Southern California. And, there was a measles outbreak not that long ago at Disneyland, years ago, but not that many. There is a history here of sort of anti-vaccination politics. So then when the pandemic hit, I think we were relieved that this anti-vax thread was in the background. Yeah. And because we were also writing about the pandemic, we kept shifting the date in which the book is set, because we were just in that unknown period, the whole world not knowing, is it going to be a year? Is it going to be months?
That's a lot to juggle for you all. Deciding what's appropriate, what's timely, what will be dated, what people will want to hear about. And I think you did it so gorgeously because it's in the context. And I don't want to give anything away, and I won't. We're talking about the last party. I don't want to give anything away, but you put it in the context of sort of cancel culture, that someone does something wrong. And there are several characters who have, almost everyone has something in their past that they wish they hadn't done or they wish people hadn't known about. and how society can turn on them and ruin their lives, sometimes completely ruin their lives. But talk a little bit about writing that, Shaylee, about well, you had Raj and you had Dawn. So pick your scandal, you two. Who wants
Yes,
to talk about
also
it?
Sybil, our psychic, she
Right.
also, had a huge scandal. So everybody has a scandal. I don't know if this is an LA thing, but
Maybe so. Maybe so.
it's just a good story thing.
And I loved her scandal, and I'm not going to tell anything about it. Hey, Liz, she does say how interesting you manage to shuffle and share writing. I have to say that I'm not going to give anything away, but I thought Sybil's scandal wasn't her fault. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Thank
I
you.
felt very, very sympathetic to her. Very sympathetic to her. Anyway, go ahead about scandals. Can't hear too much about scandals.
Wow, I'm so glad that you feel that way about Sybil because, she is in many ways like every character I'll ever write in my life, unlikable in certain ways, but I'm glad that you felt her vulnerability. Thank you. Sorry, Shaylee.
Well, no, I think even in the other cancelable scandals, Dawn's and Raj's, we wanted to write them in a way that brought complexity to the
Mhm.
choices they made, even though there were, in Raj's case, disastrous consequences. But we wanted to lead with their humanity and their need. And in Dawn's case, she was kind of just trying to survive. And so we wanted the reader to have compassion for our characters' poor choices that resulted in, in
And
scandal.
everybody in this book pretty much is sort of trying to do the best they can with
They
what
are.
they're given, and they're fragile. They're fragile, and they have beliefs, some of which they are wondering if are good anymore, are outdated, outmoded, whether they're holding on to a past that they shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that, when you're publishing in a genre, that is meant to be read very fast and escapist, there was some question about how much of the pandemic are we going to put in the book because, God, we were all just living it. I mean, we were like smack in the middle of the pandemic, and it felt like a very hopeless time. And so I feel like I hope that we did just the right amount because it would have felt so inauthentic not to include it. I mean, for me as a writer, part of the reason that Chaley and I write, and I'm sure you too, and everyone, is to make sense of life and what's happening around you and the world and your place in it.
Hmm.
And it was a really wild time to be a fiction writer, especially coming after the Trump years.
Yes.
It was some of the greatest story that had ever been written.
I think in my opinion, if I'm allowed to say, hi Sylvia, my opinion is that you handled the COVID element of it so respectfully, because that could have been very difficult for some people to read in so many ways, and you make it just be such a seamless part of the story and not hitting readers over the head with it, but it's almost a character in someone's life.
Yeah.
Something happened for a reason that they're trying to understand. And
I
maybe
really appreciate you saying that because we really
Gosh,
we
best
had
reader
a
ever.
lot of dialogue between us about the heaviness or lightness of the
Yeah.
COVID touch in the book. And we also, I mean, just like you're saying, we wanted to be sensitive, but we also didn't want the book to feel too timely because then it can quickly feel dated. So we wanted it to.
you have this book is just so perfectly California, no matter when anybody reads it. from the psychic to the drug use to the dancing in the forest and the red cowboy boots and all those kinds of things, and candles and mysticism and dancing and everything is so very, very California. Was it fun to write the sort of super California parts?
It's interesting because Chaley and I, in both of the books that we've written together as Cassidy Lucas, Santa Monica and The Last Party, it's very interesting to have one author who's more of an insider, because Chaley's lived here for much longer than I have, and the outsider perspective, which is mine. So of course that does help us choose which characters to write about. Like Dawn would be hard for me. I can barely say the word esthetician. When I moved here, I was like, what? I'm like, is that someone who's into aesthetics? And I remember like a mom at school looking at me and being like, what planet do you come from? Have you ever had a facial? But, I think that helps because Chaley is really writing from a place of experience and knowledge, and I'm writing from a place of just like awe. And
but that comes through in the book. The sort of inside outside element of your book is so clear throughout, and the use of multiple points of view allows us to see the world through other people's eyes, which then allows us to make a judgment based on what we hear from inside the person and what we understand from someone who is outside the person. You have Hollywood and aging actors and the high-tech industry, psychedelic drugs. It's all there, in every way. And people are talking about you talk about working together. I'd love to know the story of how you met.
Chaley, or me, or what? I don't know.
Sure. We met in the early aughts in Brooklyn, and I had just moved from San Francisco to New York and had an MFA in poetry, but was kind of a closet fiction writer. Mm-hmm. And I was nosing around for a workshop that I could take.
Craigslist, of course.
Craigslist. And I love this story. And I was browsing Craigslist and I saw an ad for Sackett Street Writers Workshop.
I don't think I'd even named it. It was
I don't know if it was named. It was like fiction workshop in my home. And I signed up and showed up, and there was Julia and a handful of other people. I think she padded that class with her husband and sister-in-law. And it was one of her earliest workshops. And I was immediately taken by her approach to writing fiction, and just by the just supportive environment that Julia fostered in the classroom, and just how fun and interesting the discussion was. And I was hooked and stayed after class and we talked, and almost 20 years later.
20 years later, and it's so funny to think, we met in the early aughts, and that seems like yesterday to me. And it's interesting to think that that's now 22 years.
I know.
Julia, have you always been a writer? Is this what you've always wanted to do?
No, actually, when I was a child, I wanted to do something more fun and exciting, like be on Broadway. And then, it's interesting because, talking to a crime writer, like a really successful crime writer, when I was a kid, probably way too young, I watched a lot of crime shows with my mom. She watched them like all night, I watched all of them. And so I think I've been slowly trying to make my way here, but
crime fiction, you mean?
Yes. And just, more, I really want to write stories where there's like a lot at stake, whether it's, so, I had gone to the Iowa Writers Workshop for my MFA, and it was very literary, serious, spare writing. And I really didn't know that much about writing or what it meant to be a writer. And I was kind of shocked when I got there and everybody had wanted to go there since they were children. And so I think the reason I put that ad on Craigslist was when I left Iowa and went to New York, I was lonely and I wanted to talk to people who loved story and character and I didn't really want to be part of the scene, because I was still pretty insecure, and it was working with these writers in my kitchen that taught me how to write. That's really how I learned.
It's interesting. I went to an event recently, not too recently, an event recently where I was talking to a person who was a writer of screenplays. And I said to this person, so what is your story about? And she says, oh, I'm not big on plot. I thought, oh. I thought, okay, good. Can't wait to read that.
So. No, and it was very much, Chaley was coming into the workshop as a poet, and she was like incredible writer of fiction already. It was just like a gift. Here's this, this woman walks into my kitchen. Her name is Heaven in Latin.
And you knew that.
Great writer. I did know that. And it was so exciting, to work with other people we were so young and eager and had so much energy and could stay up hours drinking coffee, talking about writing. So I think that really helped us kind of create a shared language and understanding of writing and craft that we were able to, tap into.
Well, you've certainly melded into one brain in your novels and in your writing, and it's so much fun to see how much affection and respect you have for each other. Even in separate screens, you can tell that you love each other and you care about each other and you respect each other, and that's really quite
do.
Congratulations on the last party. Let's see if we have any questions from the audience. I want to just, before we get to Julie, I love that. Although you mentioned something, Julie, about wanting to be on Broadway, and Margaret on the backstage is asking how many of us wanted to be on Broadway when we were little, and that's absolutely, really, you too, Chaley. I really wanted to be Adelaide in Guys and Dolls.
It's a good one.
Completely so. Anyway, we'll take
at the time when I was in high school, and we went and saw Tyne Daly in it, some kind of instant gratification, like that's just so, the opposite of writing.
I know. Isn't that interesting? Because you have to wait a year for the applause.
And then
you are getting the applause.
Part of writing together that's so satisfying is that, you're not, someone asked a question, Julie, on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
What are the best parts about writing together and what are the bad parts? The best part, and is that you're not alone. One of the best parts, that you share these characters. Usually I really mourn the characters after I finish a book, and I'm like, oh my God, this is it. We're saying goodbye. And now that I write faster, as I get older, I get less time with them. But that's also one of the challenging parts, is that you're not alone.
Right.
So, Chaley, are there times that, I'm not going to ask you this, but are there times when you think, I just want to do this my way? Or do you have
yes, I'm incredibly bossy and controlling. Yes. Yeah, no. I would say, the best, there's so many great parts. It really is such a unique experience. And when the process is working together, it really is the best of everything, because you have that exhilaration of creating something that's working and developing its own agency and making sense and having layers and depth. And you're not doing it alone. You're doing it with someone else. So it really is, I say this all the time, and it sounds precious, but it's true. For me, the process is as good as it gets. Until I'm, like famous and have a real bestseller. No, but I really, the process is as good as it gets. And being able to share that with someone else is pretty remarkable. So when it's, it's like when it's good, it's so good. But then look, there's just a lot of like mundane dailiness, and there's practicality that comes with writing together. And, I for a long time have been pretty attached to my particular process, and my habits. And it requires flexibility and generosity and patience for both of us to let each other into our, just our personal processes.
I love that. Flexibility and generosity and patience are three things that can make any marriage be wonderful. And you have a wonderful book marriage in The Last Party. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we are so running out of time. I let this go way, way, way too long.
Thank
It
you.
was so much fun to talk to you.
Thank you. And you too, amazingly so. We have time for one question. Is there one more question? Maybe two more questions if we have them. I'm looking at the how do you celebrate, says Sylvia Chipka Bonanni. You can read all day, Sylvia, and welcome, welcome, welcome. How did you celebrate the finalized manuscript? A party, right? No. Did you have
No, because it was I feel like we were in a surge, maybe. I don't, it was such a the pandemic really
This was an atypical book. It was very anticlimactic. We both had a lot going on in our personal lives. I don't even know if we've had a proper celebration, honestly. So thank you for reminding us.
We did have a launch,
Definitely.
Yeah, we had a launch together and all of our pals came.
And this party, the launch party, is reminding me that I do want to commend you on the gorgeous title, which seems very on the surface until you get to the point when you realize, oh my golly, this is way more than, it has a lot more meaning than you think when you first see the title. So it's really good, you guys. Really, really, really.
Shout out to our editor.
Wait, was that our editor? Wasn't you?
Was that? It was Sarah. Our editor, Sarah Nelson.
Out of the ballpark.
Sarah Nelson, thank you.
Out of the ballpark. Well, we
wanted to call it The Canyon, but that sounds like a cowboy story. And so anyway, that was not a good choice.
Well, because it's not only the final party, maybe, but it is the previous party as well. So the last party is awesome. I loved it. I thought, when I read it. Anyway, let us draw. One of you lucky reader winners is going to get a copy of The Last Party, and let's draw from the wheel of fun to see. I love this so much, you all.
So cool. I love it.
Isn't it hilarious? And the winner is Nancy Reed Legowski. That's great, Nancy. You lucky woman, you are going to get to read The Last Party. So email me via the comment.
That is so fun.
I will get Shaylee and Julia to send you a book. Lucky, lucky you. You two, one half and one half. I love the titles that you put up. Thank you for coming today to Crime Time. We loved talking about The Last Party, which we commend highly to all of you. If you aren't Nancy Legowski and didn't win, go right out right now in about 30 seconds and get your own copy of The Last Party. And do then come back and join me next Tuesday at 4 p.m. ET for Look What We Have, My Summer Darlings by May Cobb, who is, look at this. First of all, it's about 3 women in a languid Texas town, and another boring summer is coming, and then a handsome stranger arrives.
Ooh.
And there you have My Summer Darlings.
That's great.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, don't forget that Hank's book, Her Perfect Life, is on sale today. Today's the day.
You have no excuse. You have no excuse. Get it today.
Thank you. Oh, you two, come over. You should come over. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks
I loved having you both here today. Thank you. I'm looking over here in the comments. They're saying, ooh, thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Fire, all these kinds of wonderful things. Please look at the comments afterwards. You will love them. And thank you all, we have to go. Until next Tuesday.
Thank you, Mighty Blaze.
Thank you, Mighty Blaze.
Great. Thank you, Julie. And to all of you out there, remember, It's always safe inside a book. And we will see you next time.